Are you ready to learn the necessary fundamentals to make your book stand out? Today, I'm going to share the 4 different fundamentals that you need to stand out in today's crowded market, because it is a very crowded market. More and more books are being published every single day, every single hour. And that's also being fueled, unfortunately, by generative AI. But we don't have to write as fast as possible. We don't have to be the fastest to market to stand out. We need to do 4 other things to stand out in the crowded market. It's not about speed, it's about quality, right? And I'm going to talk about the 4 fundamentals you need to write a quality book that stands out in today's market. But before I dive into those 4 things, I want to invite you to join me next week, May 19th through the 23rd, 2025, at noon Eastern time each day for the Indie Author Bootcamp. So this is for any Christian writer, whether you're just starting out as a first-time author or you're an established author, but looking to maybe get some more wind beneath your sails again, maybe especially in the marketing aspect of it. But overall, there are so many things that we can tweak, from writing our book to self-publishing to marketing. And I'm going to talk about each of those aspects and so much more in next week's bootcamp. I'm going to share a lot more detail about that at the end of this episode, so make sure you stick around for that. But in the meantime, go ahead and use the link in the show notes to save your seat. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be full of lots of value, and not just information, but also an opportunity for you to begin to implement during our time together. All right, let's dive into today's 4 fundamentals. So the first, it's time to get back to the basics, right? There's so many bells and whistles and flashy things going on right now that's distracting, and it's doing an effective job of distracting authors from what's really most important. So the first thing that we want to do is write a quality book. And what do I mean by a quality book? Because quality can be a subjective term. What one person thinks is a brilliant book, high quality, another person might think is lousy. So how do you ensure that your book is a quality book? It's important to make sure that you are writing good content. And by that, content that is well thought out, that you are really taking the time to dig into answering people's questions, addressing people's concerns. If you're writing fiction, making sure you're entertaining them. You're making sure that everything flows, it's not disjointed. You're making sure that you provide value. Maybe you're adding resources into it, checklists, whatever it might be. Quality content can also include making sure, and I shouldn't say can also include, it absolutely should include a professional edit, making sure that we have all of the grammar and the punctuation and all of that consistent and concise and clear. We don't want the reader to get frustrated halfway through by disjointed sentences or distracted by yet another missing punctuation mark. So that's fundamental number 1. Write that content, which incidentally means that you have to make the time to write that content, right? We don't want to spend all of our time researching and never getting the book written. We don't want to hold off publishing out of fear of not being a good enough writer. Invest in a writing coach if you need to. Get into a writing support group. Get into a critique group. Whatever it takes to help you improve your writing, because we can all improve. Even best-selling authors out there are still improving. And if you don't believe me, just go back through their series of books. You will see how they have grown as a writer with each consecutive book. At least they should have continued to improve, right? No one is perfect except God, right? And so we can't expect perfection of ourselves. I know we strive for it, and that's just not attainable. So I want us to do the best that we can, continue to improve, and just write to the best of our abilities and enlist the assistance of qualified professionals like editors to ensure that what we have written, like I said, makes sense and is clear. The next fundamental is to consistently interact with your ideal audience. What do I mean by that? You've probably heard the terms publishing platform or author brand, and everyone's always just throwing these terms out there like you should intuitively know what that means and how to go about doing it, right? But if you are like me and many of the clients that I work with, other writers that I work with, that's not intuitive. What's an author platform? How do I build an author brand? Why do I need another author brand? How do I go about doing that? Let me break it down for you very simply right here. All that means is that you need to consistently interact, engage with your ideal audience. People have to know who you are in order to be able to buy your book, to know about your book, right? A lot of best-selling authors sell books because of name recognition. And there have been a lot of New York Times best-selling books that I have not been a fan of, and I've thought that isn't really great writing, but I was initially drawn to their book because of name recognition, right? So how can you get your name, your author name, your book title out there to more people? By talking to more people, whether it's your ideal audience or whether it is bookstore owners, all of that, which kind of bleeds into marketing. But you've got to let people know that A, you're writing a book if it's not done yet, and B, you have a book available if you have finished writing your book, okay? So go to where your readers are. Don't expect them to come to you, especially if you don't have brand recognition, name recognition yet. Go to where they are and introduce yourself. Just be friendly and announce that you are a writer of such and such a genre, and your book is about XYZ. Is that something that interests you? And if they are saying yes, then you tell them more. And if they ask questions, you respond. And you get to know them in person. You get to know them online. You get to know them through your email newsletter. You invite them to respond to your newsletters. When people do comment on your social post, don't just like it back, put the little heart on there. Give them an actual response. Maybe send them a direct message and tell them how much comment meant. If they ask a question, if you don't think that everybody and their brother should see what that response is, you can DM them and private message them a response, right? Engage, connect. When people connect with you, they're going to be much more likely to remember who you are when your book comes out. And they're also, if they like you, going to be that much more likely to recommend your book to others, okay? So don't be afraid of getting out there and interacting with your ideal audience, wherever that is that they hang out. Every market hangs out in different places, so you go where your audience is. Make sure that you do the research to find out where that is. All right, fundamental number 3 is to self-publish with professionalism. Now, your mind probably went straight to book cover, which is spot on. Book cover is key in attracting people. So you want to make sure that it is a professionally designed cover, right? So go ahead and start saving up for a professional designer. Okay, that is going to be an expense, which leads me into the next part of professionalism, which is treating your author journey like a business, because it is a business. There are expenses, the designer, the editor, some marketing expenses, other just miscellaneous. If you didn't have a computer, you had to buy a computer, all of that, right? That's part of running a business. And it becomes a business when you are expecting to make book sales, which I hope you are, because there's nothing wrong with Christian writers making an income from their books. I'm just putting that out there. So when you have expenses and you have income, you have a business. and you have to pay taxes on those, right? And so you have to keep good records. So when you self-publish professionally, it means that you are seeing yourself as a professional author, and you're treating your book with the professionalism it deserves by self-publishing in a way that competes with traditionally published books. You want a book that looks on the outside and the inside just as good a quality as a traditionally published book. And that means that you have to also get in front of your audience in order to sell more books, which leads us into fundamental number 4, which is market your message, not the mundane. And I'm saying this out of love because I know you're doing the best that you possibly can. A lot of authors are not trained in marketing. A lot of authors are willing to pay people to do the marketing for them because there's just so much fear and frustration and not knowing what to do. And I want to help solve that problem for you. Because once you learn how to effectively market your book, no one can sell your book better than yourself, right? A marketing service, it has its purpose, and they might sell some books, but their best interest isn't in you alone. It's in all of their clients. So their attention is divided, right? You have a laser focus on selling your books, and you wrote those books so you know them inside and out, and you can answer reader questions and you can answer interview questions, right? Don't be afraid to send out press releases and get media interviews. Don't be afraid to pitch yourself as a podcast guest. Make sure that you are sharing value and not just fluff, right? In our efforts, especially as first-time authors, I see this a lot, they're following the influencer movement. They just want to get as many likes, as many views as they possibly can, and as many impressions as possibly can. And I think that equates to selling books, and it doesn't, unfortunately. Those likes and views are fleeting, and they often have nothing to do with our books, because maybe you posted a cute video of your dog, or maybe you went someplace on vacation and you posted about that vacation place and you shared a beautiful scene and everybody was loving that. Unless you were writing a book about your dog, unless you were writing a book about that place, doesn't make sense to just constantly be posting about the mundane, what you ate for breakfast, where you took a walk, right? Now, yes, it's important for readers to get to know who you are as an author. There's nothing wrong with sharing that periodically, especially in stories. But you don't want to make the mundane your main message all the time. More than the mundane, you want to allow people to get to know you, what you believe in, what your message is, what you're passionate about, what you wrote your book about, right? That is how you're going to be able to sell more books. So authors often overlook one or more of these fundamentals, or maybe they just do them at surface level, and it's not your fault. If you're one of those authors, it's not your fault because no one has ever really trained you on how to effectively write and market your own books. Sure, you're taught a bunch of different tactics, but then you're left to try to filter through what's right and that's working for that person, so it must work for everybody, but that's not the case, unfortunately. Every author writes differently. Every author needs to market a little differently, depending on your audience, depending on your genre, depending on your budget, depending on so many things, right? You don't necessarily know how to apply all this information to your own unique situation. And unfortunately, a lot of times that leads you to believe that you're not qualified, or maybe you believe it takes way too much time and effort to do all this. A lot of fear sets in. It's time to stop being fear-mongered too, right? You absolutely have the ability to write and self-publish and market your book, right? Especially when you stay concentrated and focused on God, who gave you those gifts, who gave you that message to share, who has readers waiting for your book, right? You have to consistently stay in prayer and seek his direction for you over anything that anyone else says, including myself. Yes, I'm a book coach, but what God is leading you to do is most important. So pay attention to what He is leading you to do. I believe you are capable of making a significant impact on the world through your story. God has given you that gift of story, not just for your own edification, although that is a benefit, but it's also for the betterment of untold numbers of other people, right? You just don't know who all is going to be impacted by your story when you put it out into the world. And that's exciting. And that's why I developed the Indie Author Bootcamp. I'm going to go really deep in the weeds on each of these topics next week in the bootcamp. And like I said, I wanted to share a little bit more about what's going to be included. So we are going to talk about developing a kingdom mindset, because no matter how many tactics, how many strategies you employ, if you don't have the right mindset, you are not going to be successful. You also are going to learn how to clarify your goals. And we're going to really dig deep here too, because you have to know your purpose and your goal of writing your book in order to get it finished and out into the world. Then we're going to talk about establishing or enhancing your writing routine. So if you are just starting out and you don't have a writing routine, you're going to leave with one. Or if you already have one in place, but you feel like it could use some modification and some enhancement, then you're going to leave with that as well. Also going to talk about creating and refining your marketing plan. And I think this is where a lot of people really struggle. I hope that you'll join me for all of these sessions, obviously, but I think that now's the time for Christian indie authors to really dig their heels in and learn how to market their books. And I'm going to share really helpful tactics for that. And then we're going to also talk about how you can make an actual impact with your book. Okay. All of this and more. There's going to be tons of value. There are going to be some prizes or giveaways, some bonuses, all kinds of things that are happening next week. If you join live, you have to be live for those things. And if you are unable to join live or can't stay for the full hour every day, know that there will be replays available to everyone who registers. So go ahead and do that right now. Do yourself a favor. Make sure that you're setting yourself up to be able to write and self-publish your book even this year. You can do it all this year still. We still have a little over 6 months left in this year, and this 2025 can be the year that you really stand out as a Christian author. So go ahead, click that link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you inside the Indie Author Bootcamp. God bless.